Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Reader Journey podcast. Today we have Alex Banayan, the author of The Third Door. Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, man. Anytime I'm on a podcast where the name is Alex and books, it's going to be a good conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm super excited for this conversation. And what I loved about your book and kind of like my brand and like the audience is that we love when we hear a story about a book changing someone's life. And that's kind of exactly how your journey started. This one day in the library and you come across this book about Bill Gates. Can you take us back to that day and talk about how that book inspired you to write The Third Door?
There were a lot of biographies that I read early on about Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. And there were some business books that I read early on too, like The 4-Hour Workweek and Never Eat Alone. But I actually would like to give some extra attention to one specific book that really, almost in a spiritual way, changed my life, even though it's a book on entrepreneurship. And it's Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh. And Tony Hsieh has, recently passed away at the age of 46. And, your question is very timely because I've been thinking about it all week about how there's something, I was 19 years old. I didn't even know who Tony Hsieh was. I didn't know even what Zappos.com was, the company that he was the CEO of. But I was just at a conference volunteering because I was trying to, network because I was 19 and, get interviews for my book. And at the conference, they were giving out free books. Sometimes they have like a swag bag, right? And, they had a free book and, I would assume you and I are pretty similar. If someone's offering a free business book, I'll just say, sure, thanks. I'm not going to say no to something free. And the book was called Delivering Happiness. I was like, okay, cool. Sounds like a cool book, but I didn't have a reason to read it. And I remember putting that book, just on my desk and not thinking about it. And then when I think it was maybe, the winter break or something like that. This is my freshman year of college, actually. I think I'm actually 18 years old. And as you know, I had this dream when I was 18. I realized the book I was dreaming of reading didn't exist. I was going through the what I want to do with my life crisis. My parents wanted me to be a doctor. I was a pre-med in college, but it felt like life was being sucked out of me by these biology books. But I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I had no idea how the people who I looked up to, how they did it. How did Bill Gates sell his first piece of software? How did Spielberg become the youngest director in Hollywood history? So, as you know, I ended up going on The Price is Right and, hacking the game show, winning a sailboat and selling the sailboat, and that's how I initially funded my journey. But that was, in a weird way, the easy part. The hard part was convincing my parents that it's okay for me to not be a doctor and go chase this crazy dream, to write this book where I would go and interview all these people I dreamed of meeting and learning from. And it's like hard to explain how scary of a time that was, because it doesn't matter if you're 18 or you're 48 or 58. Anytime you are in a tribe, whether that tribe is your family unit, your group of best friends, your coworkers, and you tell that tribe that you're thinking of actually moving in a different direction, and they, freak out. My mom was crying and yelling, and, it was like a World War III in our house. They were immigrants from Iran, and they came to America and sacrificed everything and got second mortgages on the house, and just so I could have an education, become a doctor. And I remember during that period of time, and it was a period, it was multiple weeks, I would just sit in bed and just stare at the wall and wonder if I was like making the biggest mistake of my life. And I was in such a dark place, and I was so scared. I didn't have a mentor. I'm 18. I don't have friends who are, pursuing their dream at the time. I was very lonely. And I look over at my desk and I just see this book and it says Delivering Happiness. I'm like, oh, that's what I need. So I reached for this. And I don't know what the book's about. I don't know who the author is. I don't know what the company is. It's just this free book. And I just reached for it. And I opened it up, and just even from the first page, I was like, huh. And it was one of those books, and it happens rare. I can count them on my fingers, where just the pages almost turn themselves. And it was this story of a guy named Tony who, just like me, felt out of place. His parents wanted him to be a doctor and wanted him, to go to Harvard and, blah, blah, blah. And Tony was very smart and did go to Harvard, but decided not to be a doctor and decided he doesn't want to work at a corporate job. So he quit his corporate job after just 2 months and ended up starting a company, and everyone thought he was crazy. And then Microsoft, bought his company, but offered him $50 million to stay at the company. And he walked away from the $50 million. And it was just this story of a guy who chose decisions for himself and not for what other people wanted him to be or thought was right. And at the time when I was 18, I didn't know what the word was to describe that phenomenon. I know now it's called courage. It's called courage, man. And it's a word that we hear all the time, but it's something that's actually very, very special and rare when you see it in full effect. And reading that book, I read the whole book in like 2 or 3 days, which I'd never done before in my life. Read a whole book front to back in pretty much 1 or 2 sittings. And I remember at the end feeling like this guy, Tony Hsieh, is my hero. He helped me see at 18 that it is possible. The power of a good book. And I think this is why your podcast, your Instagram handle, your Twitter handle is so beautiful, because books, unlike other kinds of media, for some reason have this way of going very deep inside the heart of the reader. And when a story is told in the right way, especially a nonfiction story, I know with Tony Hsieh's story of Delivery Happiness, it helped me not only change what I believed was possible in this world, but it changed what I believed was possible for my own life. And that's one of the most beautiful gifts you can give someone.
Wow, that's just so incredible. And you're like absolutely right. That's kind of like the whole reason I started this whole book thing is just because like books are so powerful, and just like you mentioned, it's like they could completely change your life, like open up your mind and just show you like this new path in life to, not just success, but like happiness overall. And that's just such an incredible story to hear about the impact Tony's book had on you. And yeah, that book completely changed your life. And just like I'm sure your book has changed the lives of, countless other people. So just thank you for sharing that, Alex. And so you mentioned courage. And I think you talk about how you had this crazy idea to, write a book about how the world's most successful people launched their careers. And as you mentioned, you end up going on The Price is Right, hacking the show and winning it. And like, your parents, yeah, and that's a crazy story in itself that everyone should read about. And the video's on YouTube too, if you want to see like the proof. This is a true story. It sounds like fiction, but it's completely true. And and so like you won this money and you have this dream, but as you mentioned, like you're a college student, your parents want you to go to pre-med. And I'm sure a lot of people could relate that they have this crazy wild dream, but the parents say, it's too risky, it's insane, it's not going to happen. How did you find the courage to kind of, follow your heart and follow your dreams and pursue like your passion in life?
Very slowly and with a lot of trepidation. I don't think courage is a thing that happens in a swift motion. I actually think true courage is a very scary phenomenon. I think when people like jump off a cliff without thinking about it, that's not courage. That's fearlessness, and that's idiotic. That's just denying reality, denying the consequences, and just jumping off the cliff. Courage is actually when you acknowledge the consequences, acknowledge your fear, analyze the situation, decide that you care so much about it, you're going to take one tiny step forward anyway. And Sometimes that courageous step is about you leaving the world you inhabit to set out on a journey to follow your dreams. Sometimes that courage is about speaking up when you see that someone is causing harm to others. And sometimes that courage is just looking in the mirror and telling yourself that you love yourself when you might have grown up in a situation where that wasn't the message you heard. But I do think, Maya Angelou has this great quote that courage is the most important of the virtues, because without courage, you can't properly exercise any other virtue. Yeah, man, life is scary sometimes. Life is scary a lot of times. I'm still scared of a lot of things. And I'm very grateful that actually the journey of the third door, when I set off to write this book, I thought, let me just go and interview all these people and get their secrets and put it all in one book and, help my generation. In some ways, that did happen in a certain way. In the book, as you know, is Tim Ferriss's cold email template. There's Bill Gates' negotiating secrets. There's Warren Buffett's stories from his early career, how he got his first job. There's, the whole spectrum. But on a personal note, my journey to get the interviews, taught me more than I could have imagined. Chasing Larry King through the grocery store, hacking more Buffett shareholders meeting. There's some stories that aren't in the book, chasing Steven Spielberg in the south of France with a dinghy, and he was on his yacht, and there's something about going after a big dream that just the act of courageously moving toward it, even though you're afraid, is a gift in and of itself. And what's cool is that when you actually step into the unknown, let's say you're looking at the third door analogy, okay? For, anyone listening who might be, unfamiliar with it, the premise of the book is that after spending 7 years interviewing and researching the world's most successful people, from interviews with Steve Wozniak to Jane Goodall to Jessica Alba to Pitbull, Quincy Jones, Larry King, Bill Gates, Lady Gaga, I realized every single one of them treat life and business and success the exact same way. And the analogy that came to me is that it's almost like getting into a nightclub. There's, always three ways in. So there's the first door, the main entrance, where the line curves around the block, where 99% of people wait around hoping to get in. That's the first door. And then there's the second door, the VIP entrance, where the billionaires and celebrities go through. And school and society have this way of making us feel like those are the only two ways in. You either wait your turn or you're born into it. But what I learned, and what you know very well, is that there's always the third door. And it's entrance where you jump out of line, run down the alley, bang on the door 100 times, crack open the window, go through the kitchen. There's always a way in. And it doesn't matter if that's how Bill Gates sold his first piece of software or how Lady Gaga got her first record deal. They all took the third door. And what's cool about the analogy is that it really works with the entrepreneurial journey in the sense of what you don't know, or what I couldn't have known, is that the scariest part of the whole process, Alex, the scariest part is leaving the line for the first door. That's where your friends are. That's where your family expects you to be. That's where your school prepares you for. That's where, if you think of even just the nightclub, that's where you're on the safe sidewalk. There's a bouncer there. There's street lamps. The third door is like super shady, man. You're in the back alley. There's some weird people back there. There's, dumpsters and mud, and there's no lights. But what you do end up finding out is there are people in this world who have taken the third door that when you have the courage to run into that alleyway, you'll meet some of them, and they'll help you. To my surprise, one of the people I met when I was running down the alley and feeling lost and dejected was actually Tony Hsieh. Years after I read his book, I randomly met him by accident. And he not only became a mentor, but he became a friend. And even when the third door was published, he bought tons of copies for his friends and his coworkers. And the reason I share this is for anyone who might feel like they're on the fence, and the fear of the unknown and the fear of the uncertainty is overwhelming. I just want to say it is hard, it is scary, it is painful at times, and also there are good people who will reach out their hand to help you. And that's, whether you want to call it the grace of God or a miracle or just the beauty of life and of human nature, there are those helpers out there. There are those good people. So you just have to, again, that's where courage comes in. Just have faith in that and take a step forward.
That's just some wonderful advice. And like you said, it's, I think the hardest part, especially like, cause I went on like my own third door journey where, you know, I went to grad school and I thought I was going to be like a business major and get a corporate job. And that's what my parents wanted me to do. And I kind of did do that. But then I just felt empty inside. Like, I was like, this is not for me. And your book actually played a big role in about showing me like, here's this kid, 18 years old, just, you know, goes on this crazy journey, interview all these people, you know, Bill Gates, Steve Wozniak, you know, the list goes on. And like, if he could do that, like, I should be able to, like, you know, have my own like little third door journey. And the crazy part is like, I tried to, you know, work for James Altucher on his podcast because I hoped one day I could start my own podcast. And I kind of, you know, I applied, I, you know, reached out to everyone on his team, you know, all of them were super nice, but they said there's no opening positions. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to start my own podcast. And eventually I had all these great authors on, and I, you know, eventually reached out to James' team. He's like, sure, I'd love to come on your podcast. And it's like, I found my own third door to like achieve my dreams. And I couldn't be like any more happier in life. But like you said, it's not like an easy step to do. You know, getting out of that first line is probably one of the hardest things to do. And it is like a shady, dark alleyway that no one really tells you where to go. You got to follow, you know, find the path yourself. But you do meet these great people on your journey. I had so many mentors, like people that have helped me out along. And it is super scary, but I'm sure you could say the same thing. It's probably one of the best decisions you ever made in your life.
Absolutely, man. And hearing you say that just made my day more than you can ever understand. What you just said is the exact reason why I spent 7 years writing this book. It's the reason. So hearing that just means a lot.
Yeah. And well, Alex, like you mentioned, this was like a long journey for you, you know, 7 years, and you did get to interview a lot of these amazing people, but you also faced a lot of like rejection and setbacks. Like I know like Steven Spielberg and Mark Zuckerberg, they both said yes to an interview, but you kind of, you know, something happened that it didn't you know, come to reality.
That's right.
So like, I'm sure a lot of people chasing their dreams also face like setbacks, or like their dreams are just within grasp, but they can't like reach it. How did you deal with like setbacks and rejections on like this long path that you've been on?
Well, there's how I dealt with the rejections back then, and then how I deal with the rejections today. Back then, I would cry and get pissed and eat ice cream, and and today sometimes I still cry and get pissed and eat ice cream. Look, this is the thing. If anyone is setting out to start something new, it doesn't matter, again, if you're 20 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, 60, it doesn't matter. If you're starting out to start anything new, the very essence of the fact that you're starting something new means that other people won't fully understand it, and you're going to need other people's help, and that dynamic is going to lead to rejections. Now, there's two kinds of rejections. I think of rejection really as like a door slamming in your face. You know, sometimes you might knock on someone's door and they slam the door in your face and you just shrug and walk away. Sometimes you knock on someone's door and you tell them about your life dream and they slam the door, and for weeks you feel like shit. right?
Yeah.
It's the same door, it's slammed in the same way, but sometimes you shrug and sometimes you feel like shit. I've been studying and researching a lot, and I'm working on my next book right now, really trying to understand the second one. When you just, the debilitating rejections, the ones that just make you just want to throw something at the wall because it just hurts so much. Because you put your heart into it and it's so hurtful. What do you do then, right? And what I've been sort of working with is that the hard part about it is it's sort of like, when you're driving your car and the check engine light comes on and you don't really know what the problem is, but something's wrong. That's how I feel when I get rejected. I know like my stomach feels weird and I sort of feel like shit, but I don't know what the exact problem is. Like that's sort of how it is. It's like the check engine comes on. And if anybody's dealing with rejections, who's listening to this, this is what I would recommend. So just like if your check engine light comes on, you have to go to a mechanic and do an auto inspection. This is what I would tell you. If you're getting rejected and you need some help, here is an auto inspection you can do to fix the problem. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's 3 things. And again, just like a mechanic, go down 1, 2, and 3 and open the hood and check out the car. The first thing on the auto inspection list, which this solves the problem for most people. When you're getting rejected and you feel like shit, the first thing to do is do a physical reset. Take a fucking nap, turn off your phone, sleep in, go for a bike ride, go for a hike, go watch a movie, just close your computer and leave. And come back the next day feeling refreshed. That solves the problem for like half the people. And Alex, do you know what most people actually do when they feel rejected? They feel so shitty that they pull an all-nighter working double as hard because they feel so shitty. And then the next day, now they're exhausted and feel shitty.
Oh. Yeah. It's like negative feedback.
Yeah, and then it becomes this like, they keep, there's a great quote that says, when you're in a hole, stop digging.
Yeah.
So, the whole thing, the first thing, if you're feeling rejection on the auto inspection checklist is do a physical reset. Just like, you're turning your computer on and off, do a physical reset. That's number 1. Let's say that doesn't work for you and you need more help. Okay, let's go to number 2 on the checklist. Number 2 is recalibrate your navigation system. And for an entrepreneur, your navigation system is really the reason why you started this in the first place, your North Star, right? And what I would tell people is normally when you are feeling debilitated by a rejection, you forgot the big picture here. You lost sight of the big picture. And what I would tell someone is to take a sheet of printer paper, take a pen, and in one sentence, write the sentence of why you started this in the first place. So for me, with the third door, it was, I'm on a mission to inspire the next generation to believe in what's possible. And just writing that on a sheet of paper and taping that above your desk helps you realize, all right, fine, Spielberg said no today. This isn't about Spielberg. It's about this mission. So that helped me, keep my eyes looking forward instead of staring in the back, the rear view mirror. So that's number 2. But let's say, Alex, someone is still suffering from rejection, which is what I was when I was, starting out. The third one is the final step of the auto inspection checklist. And if number 1 and number 2 aren't working for you, the third one is to disassemble your pain. Just like you would disassemble an engine, you have to disassemble your pain. And what you need to do is you need to call over another mechanic. You need a second pair of hands here. And that second pair of hands can be a friend you trust, a mentor you trust, or even a therapist. And what you need to do is you need to ask yourself, and you need the other person to help you investigate what the story is that you have in your head about what that rejection means about you. Is that door that's slammed in your face telling you you're not good enough? Is that door slammed in your face telling you that your dream is bad, that you're dumb, that you're not loved, that you're unworthy, that you're not special? And what is that rejection telling you about your future? Is that door slamming in your face telling you that you're never going to complete this dream, that no one's going to believe in you, that you're never going to make money? Because then there's an underlying story that's actually causing the pain. It's not the door that slammed in your face. It's the story that you tell yourself about what that door means. So there it is, man. That's the auto inspection checklist. Anyone struggling with rejection can just work the way down this checklist and find a way to get that check engine light to turn on.
Yeah. Wow, that's an incredible analogy. And yeah, I like how you broke that down. And yeah, it's like when you get rejected, it's not physical pain. It's like they're just saying no, but there's this huge like mental pain that comes over you. And I think especially step 3 is like a great way to like break it down and understand where is it coming from and analyze it. And especially the second one you mentioned is like, you have to know your why. And it's like one no shouldn't really stop you from your entire mission. If you have a big why, such as you did, you got rejected countless times over and over again, but you kept going just because you had this super important mission that you were on and you were dedicated to getting it done. And I just think that's a great checklist you have there, Alex.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
So just to kind of lighten the mood here, because I know we've gone kind of really deep into the emotions of a lot going on in the book. Like one of my favorite stories is how you met and had the opportunity to like interview the legendary author Tim Ferriss. Would you mind like sharing that story with us? Because it just like made me laugh out loud. I love that one.
Yeah, funny, I haven't shared that story in a while. He again, we talked about in the beginning, the books that really change your life. And when I was 18, one of the books I read that really opened my mind to the world was The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And one of the things that really inspired me was that Tim wrote it when he was 29 years old. And at that time, and still even today, best-selling business books are not written by people in their 20s. It just didn't happen. And here I was with a dream to write a best-selling business book. And, I had to talk to this guy, Tim Ferriss. I had to. I didn't even know what I wanted to ask him. I just knew I had to talk to him, I knew there was something he needed to teach me. I just didn't even know what, but I just knew. I had that burning feeling. I had to talk to him. And what I did when I was starting my journey of the third door is I made a list of all the people I wanted to interview, like 24 names. And I printed them on a small little note card and kept it in my wallet. So anytime I would ever meet somebody, when you're at an event or having coffee with someone and you tell them about your dream, they always say, oh, like, who do you want to interview when you tell them? It's just like the normal nice thing to ask. So what I would do is I would be like, I would literally take out the note card because I was just crossing my fingers that maybe like 1 out of 10 people I would meet would know or have an idea of how to get to these people. Because I had no idea. I don't know. I was a random 18-year-old college student with no connections. Like, I don't know how to get to Tim Ferriss. But I just like kept like asking out these adults to like coffee to, get guidance. And eventually one person who I was having coffee with looked at my note card and said, oh, I know someone who knows Tim Ferriss. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, my boss went to high school with him. So I was like, dope. That's awesome. And this guy who I was having coffee with, his name was Cesar, and he worked for a great nonprofit called Donors Choose. And not only did his boss know Tim Ferriss was on the advisory board for the nonprofit. So I was like, okay, this is awesome. So Cesar tells me, write a interview request letter, send it to me. I'll send it to my boss. My boss will send it to Tim. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. My life is going to be incredible. Like, you just get so excited. So I'm so excited. And I send the letter, I email it over, and, Cesar says, look, let's just wait and see what Tim's response is. But in the meantime, let me send you some like donors choose gift cards that you can give out to people who you interview. And I was like, that's amazing. You know, it's gift cards that people can essentially use to donate classroom supplies to kids who need it. It's like a very beautiful idea. So, you know, a week goes by and 2 weeks goes by and 3 weeks goes by and a month goes by and there's no response from Tim Ferriss. And, you know, I'm feeling very, very down on myself. And I didn't know what to do. And one night I was just like brainstorming how to get to Tim Ferriss. And I checked my spam of my email and there was this newsletter saying the Evernote conference coming to San Francisco next week featuring best-selling author Tim Ferriss. And I was like, oh my God, this is a sign from God. I have to go to San Francisco. And Alex, you have to understand, I'm 18 years old. I've never been on an airplane without my mom. Like, I'm like living, I'm a kid. And I'm like, and I had just won the Price is Right. So I had a little bit of money because I sold the sailboats. I'm like, I'm going to use my money from the Price is Right and buy a plane ticket and go to San Francisco. And I'm going to, at that point, I probably emailed Tim Ferriss's office, like 15, 20 times already. So I was like, I'm going to print out all my emails. Like, this is the stupidest idea. But I was like, I'm going to print out all my emails to Tim Ferriss, go to the conference and show him the emails and he'll love me. So, dude, that's exactly what I did. I printed out all the emails. I bought a plane ticket to San Francisco. It was the first time I ever bought a plane ticket in my life. I fly to San Francisco and I go to this event. And the second I walk into the event, my stomach drops because I see there's hundreds of other people, all with like copies of the 4-Hour Workweek in their hands, all here to talk to Tim Ferriss. Shoot, like I thought I was so naive. I thought I was the only person on earth who wanted to like interview Tim Ferriss. So, I showed to this event and there's hundreds and hundreds of people there. But I said, okay, I'm just going to be the first person to talk to Tim Ferriss. So I saw that the stage had stairs on the right-hand side. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get a chair, a seat, right next to the right-hand side staircase. So when the speech is finished and Tim Ferriss walks down the staircase, I'm the first person he sees. So I get the perfect chair all the way on the right-hand side of this big auditorium. I sit down, the lights dim, people start applauding, and Tim Ferriss enters the stage from the far left side of the stage. So now I'm on the complete worst seat. I'm on the complete opposite side of the whole auditorium now. I'm like, shit, like I just like came all the way to San Francisco, spent my money, and I'm not going to be able to talk to Tim Ferriss. This is a disaster. And I'm like, think, Alex, think. And I'm like scanning the room, and I like noticed there's like a bathroom, like a VIP bathroom, all the way on the left side next to the staircase on the left side. I'm like, that bathroom is literally like 3 feet away from the staircase. That's like my best opportunity. So, dude, it's like so silly. I get up and I like run into this bathroom, but there was like a bouncer like in front of the bathroom. And I just sort of like waved my hands over my bladder, and I guess guys like sort of freaked out and let me into the bathroom. And I like go into the bathroom and I end up staying in a bathroom stall and by the way, I do not recommend this to anybody, but this is what I was doing as an 18-year-old. I was in the bathroom stall with my ear pressed against the tile wall, listening to the speech, the smell of like urine and hand soap stinging my nostrils. And I'm listening to the speech, waiting for the moment. And it finally came. I hear the applause after 30 minutes, and I jump out of the bathroom, and sure enough, like a miracle, Tim Ferriss is standing 2 feet in front of me all alone. And I got very nervous because that's what happens to me. Whenever like things are perfectly right in front of me, I get very nervous. I call it the flinch. And I was so nervous, but I knew I had to do something. So I just took out, and I had brought one of the Donor Shoes gift cards with me. I like just whipped out a Donor Shoes gift card from my back pocket and just like handed it to him. And he like, you have to understand from his perspective, like an 18-year-old jumped out of the bathroom and gave him a gift card. And Tim looks at me and he's like, thank you.
Oh boy.
And he's like, oh, like, how do you know Donor Shoes? That's awesome. And I'm like, well, they actually were helping me get in touch with you. And he's like, really? And I was like, yeah, I'm actually writing this book where I'm interviewing the world's most successful people to uncover how they launched their careers. And I'm reaching out to people like Bill Gates and Maya Angelou and Jane Goodall and Tim Ferriss. And he said, haha, that's very funny. And I said, no, seriously, I've been emailing you. And from my other pocket, I whipped out like the 15 emails. And I like hand him like 15 emails like an idiot. I give him like a big stack of papers. And he's like, thank you. And I'm like, you know, I tell him like about my dream to help the next generation. And he goes, all right, let me like look over these emails and I'll get back to you in a couple of days. And, you know, he like squeezes my arm. We take a picture together. He was really nice. And I think like I'm on cloud nine. And of course, 2 days pass and I don't hear from him. 2 weeks pass, nothing. 2 months pass, nothing. And I just start emailing his office over and over and over again. And they keep saying no. And finally, for some reason, after my 30-second email, out of nowhere, they say, Tim would like to speak to you tomorrow. Like literally tomorrow. And I'm like, oh my God, persistence, it worked. I'm genius. Like I thought I like figured out how to like win at life, just harass. What I didn't know was, and I found out later, I actually found this out a few years after that, I was at a dinner where I was seated next to Tim a few years later. And he told me the real story. And the real story is when this Donor Shoes CEO at the very beginning sent my message, my interview letter to Tim, Tim actually said, no, thank you. But the Donor Shoes CEO felt bad for me and like didn't want to tell me that I got rejected. So he like never told me the answer was no. So after like my 32 emails, Tim was so upset and annoyed at me that he like called the Donor Shoes CEO and said, what the hell is wrong with this 18-year-old? And the CEO of Donor Shoes, like God bless him, said, look, man, you know, he's definitely rough around the edges, but I think his heart is in the right place. And he's really trying to help people. And that is actually what led him to say yes. And I didn't learn my lesson about over persistence then. I had to learn it later with Warren Buffett, but it was a really funny story. And the interview with Tim, of course, was amazing. The cold email template of how to reach out to VIPs was incredible. So I'm very, very grateful for Tim. And as life would have it, when I went to go get my publishing deal, I ended up getting the same publisher that published Tim's 4-Hour Workweek. And what I didn't know, and because life is just weird like this, my publisher was on the fence about whether to give me the deal or not, because I was 20 years old. They had never given a deal to a 20-year-old. And they secretly, without telling me, called Tim Ferriss and said, what do you think? Do you think we should deal or not? And God bless him, Tim said, I think you should do it.
Wow. That's just, yeah, for everyone listening, that's just one of the many incredible, wild, funny, hilarious stories in this book. And it's just, I mean, that's such a cool experience, Alex.
Thank you, man. Even as I'm talking about it, it doesn't, like, I'm not numb to how cool, how beautiful the full circle-ness is. And again, it's just a testament to the fact that dude, life is hard, life is painful, and life is beautiful, and there's miracles every day.
I mean, 100% agree there. And I mean, I'm so happy Tim said yes because really, because your book is really three books in one. It's like one is first your journey, which is just incredible of how you went and interviewed all these people. The second is like you learn about how all these successful people launched their careers, and then the third part is like you get all of this great advice. Like Tim Ferriss shares like this email technique. You learn from Pitbull about how you have to stay an intern. You meet Larry King and Cal Fussman about how to interview people better, and it's like three different books all wrapped in together, and it's just such a great story. It's hilarious, so much great information, and yeah, super happy Tim Ferriss said yes and you got this book deal.
Thank you, man. Me too, man. Me too.
Yeah. And so Alex, I want to be respectful of your time. I wish we could talk for hours because there's so much, great stories and everything. But like the closing question I always ask my guests are, what are two books that had like a impact on your life, and how did those books change you? And I know you already mentioned the 4 Hour Workweek and Tony Hsieh's book. So I was wondering, are there like two more books that like really had a crucial role in your life?
Yeah, there's been a few years ago. I would say about 4 years ago, my dad got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. It was just one of those times in life where it feels like the ground has been pulled from under you and you're just like free falling. And funny enough, just like with that Tony Hsieh situation, I was sitting in my office, sort of like, my storage closet where I just sit and write. And I have all these books on my shelf. And there was a book. I have this rule in my life. It's not a rule, but it's just a thing that I do, which is whenever someone tells me a book changed their life and it's someone who I admire, I just buy the book. I just buy it. And at some point in my life, even if I'm not going to read it this week or this month, if the person is someone who I'm like, wow, I really like how they lived their life, and they said this book changed them for the better, I know I buy it on the spot. And there's this one yoga teacher who's just like the most inspiring person to me, and she said the book When Things Fall Apart changed her life. So I had bought it and just put it on my desk, and it's When Things Fall Apart by Tim Ferriss. So now, flash forward a year later, my dad has just been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I'm like crying every day. I don't know what to do. And I'm just staring at my bookshelf. And how sometimes like one book just sort of like talks to you and says like, pick me up. Like, I don't know. I sometimes like, feel like sometimes books just like talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I was like looking at the spine of the book and it said, When Things Fall Apart. And I said, yes, that is the definition of my life right now. And I opened it and I read it, and it just completely changed how I view life, how I viewed my current situation. And it was so powerful. Like every single page is underlined, and I bought copies and gave it to my mom and my sisters too. And so that changed my life tremendously. And then I would say in this past year, there's a book called Einstein and the Rabbi. And the subtitle is Searching for the Soul. And the book is written by Naomi Levy. And it's this amazing book about really how to reconnect with your soul and what that even means. And because really, like, I think a lot of people, myself included, are searching for success and searching for going after a goal. Where we're also searching for is that feeling of feeling completely alive. And that's what this book's really about. So I would say those are two books that really changed me. When Things Fall Apart by Tim Ferriss and Einstein and the Rabbi by Naomi Levy.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing those. I've read Things Fall Apart, but I haven't heard of the second one. So yeah, just like you, I love asking people what are some books that changed their life, and because you never know, like like I haven't heard of like the second book, and definitely gonna check it out after this podcast, and I'm sure listeners will too.
So good. It's like this little like secret book that's like, I think it's the most underrated. You know, like some books like everyone's heard of, but it's not that good. This is like the opposite. Like no one's heard of, but every time I like tell a friend of mine to read it, they're like, "Oh my God, I cannot believe I've never heard of this book. This is incredible."
Right. Yeah, it's one of those hidden gem books, I'm sure. And Alex,
So
I know a lot of people are fans of your books, and like you kind of touched on this earlier, but you're writing a second book. Is it like still in stealth mode, or can you tell us a little bit about it? Give us like sneak peek.
it's definitely in stealth mode. You're actually the first. This is the first podcast I even mentioned that I'm working on a second book.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't planning it. You know, surprise.
Exclusive.
Yeah, man, this is the exclusive, exclusive drop. And it is a continuation of the third door. And if the third door was much more on the mindset of success, this is much more on the tactics of success. And that's where we're at. Stay tuned, man. Stay tuned. And of course, I'll be sharing it with you as soon as it's ready.
Of course, I'm super excited. I got like goosebumps here. I love the third door. So, I mean, if you're writing another book, you know, I'm all in. Would love to, you know, read it and, you know, of course, share about it, and hopefully have you back again on the podcast to talk about it.
I would love that, man. Let's do it.
Awesome. So, Alex, I'm sure listeners have loved this conversation, and many of them would like to connect with you or maybe even contact you. Where's the best place for them to go?
If anybody is listening to this and, you know, like the conversation or ended up buying the third door and reading it, let me know on Instagram. It's just at Alex Banayan. And on Twitter, same thing. It's at Alex Banayan, AlexBanayan. And let me know you heard this podcast so I can say thank you.
Yeah, and for everyone listening, yeah, Alex is super responsive on social media. Yeah, and Alex, I just want to say, like, from the bottom of my heart, this has been such a wonderful, genuine, and heartfelt conversation. Thank you so much for writing this book, for, you know, sending me a copy, for inviting me to New York to meet up with you, for coming on the podcast. You know, I'm sure your book has changed a lot of people's lives, and mine is definitely one of them. So thank you so much, Alex.
So beautiful, man. Thank you so much for saying that.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Reader's Journey. You can learn more about what was covered in today's podcast in the show notes below. If you enjoyed this podcast, the best way you can support it is by subscribing and leaving a positive review. If you're looking for reading tips or book recommendations, head over to alexandbooks.com. If you want to join my reading journey, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter by searching for Alex and Books. That's all for now. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you soon. Read on, everyone.